me Z and T, cause I'm the best in the game. I got the fame, the style that isn't lame.
Hey, is there a cassette tape anywhere?
I sure do. This cassette is the best, I can attest. Best cassette in the east to the west. Yeah, I ain't a rapper. This cassette's dapper. I'm no capper.
Okay, do you mind if I take that off your hands?
Yeah, sure.
Alright, thank you.
No problem, bro.
And this is this week's Closet Classics.
Hello and welcome to Baked Good. Today we'll be making a spring cookie wreath. Let's get started. Alright, so first we're going to make our dough. This is one of my favorite dough recipes because you can roll it right out after you make it. It doesn't have to be refrigerated or anything. And this recipe I've used countless times. It's absolutely wonderful. I change the flavors up once in a while, but today we're going to put a little vanilla and a little lemon in it since it's springtime. So we're going to start with a cup of unsalted butter, and I think we've discussed we always use unsalted butter so you can control the salt, and you're going to be adding salt with your baking powder anyways. So 2 sticks is 1 cup. All right. And we're going to add to that 1.5 cups of sugar. Sorry it's so noisy. Now we want to beat this for a good minute. You really need to get the butter incorporated into the sugar. It makes the difference of whether the butter bleeds out of your pastries, cookies, what have you, whatever it is that you're making. So you want to make sure that it's in there. My paddle's a little big so you can hear the thumping. So it's got to be incorporated very good. It looks pretty good. It's a warm day today, so the butter was very soft at room temperature, so I think we can go ahead. So to this we're going to add an egg. And we're going to add 1.5 teaspoons of clear vanilla. Now clear vanilla is just a preference. It's only so it doesn't change the color of your dough. If you want a very light dough, it really doesn't make a big difference if you use the brown vanilla. You just notice a slight difference. So we're going to put 1.5 teaspoons. And then since this is a springtime wreath, I'm going to put a little lemon peel in here. I think that would be very nice for some spring cookies. So I'm going to put 1/2 teaspoon of lemon peel. And this is something I get at a specialty spice store. You could certainly use fresh lemon peel. I just happen to have this on hand and it tastes very good. Alright, so I'm gonna shut that off for a second. So I have here 2 3/4 cups of flour. And to this I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of baking powder and 1 teaspoon of salt. This is a pretty simple recipe. I'm just gonna mix this up a little bit, and I always use the whisk. I'm not a big sifter unless it has to be something perfectly smooth. I'm just gonna whisk it in and fluff up the flour a little bit. And we're gonna add this right to our butter mixture. Little at a time, because I'm sure some of you know you can coat the whole kitchen in flour if you do it too fast. All right, it's looking good. It's nice now that it's a little warmer and things are room temperature and come together easy. So you just want to do it just till it's incorporated. You don't want to overdo it, but it should be really stuck together. Almost, not quite a ball, but almost. All right, that looks good. All right. All right, so now we're going to roll out our dough. We're just going to put enough flour so it doesn't stick. I happen to have a marble board, but you could roll out on any flat surface. Oh, I did forget my rolling pin. I'll have to grab my rolling pin. So just a little coating. I'm using a silicone rolling pin, but any rolling pin will do. This just happens to be my favorite. I don't know if you've noticed that I like a little bit of red. So almost everything in my kitchen is red. All right, we're gonna grab about half of our cookie dough. Maybe scrunch it into a bit of a ball. Makes it easier to start rolling out. I can already smell this with the lemon peel. This is very nice for a nice spring recipe. So that's probably a little less than half, but it'll get us going. Just gonna smush it down into a bit of a disc. Oh, I'm gonna need my bench scraper too. That's just one of those extra handy things. Now I always flip it over after I put flour on one side, just to make sure it doesn't stick. So we're gonna roll it out. I tend to go almost around in a circle, just to get an even rolling so it's not all going one way. I guess I'm used to rolling for pie crust. Now you can see a little bit of flick from the peel, but we're gonna ice these cookies, so that's not gonna be an issue. What I'm looking for is maybe about 1/8 of an inch thick, maybe a little thicker, but 1/8 of an inch is a good mark. And I can tell just by holding it. I know obviously you couldn't, but you could measure it. But you're looking for a nice even dough too. You don't want like a hump or a thicker middle or anything like that. So since this is a spring wreath today, what I thought I'd do, I'm going to use an Easter egg cutter. And the base of my wreath is basically going to be a lot of different Easter eggs, and I'll do them different colors. And then I have some bunnies, 2 different kind of bunnies, and a bow cookie cutter. So we're going to cut out some Easter eggs. I can't tell you an exact number. What I do is just make a ton of cookies and arrange it as I can. I'll arrange all the eggs in a circle, and then I'll put a couple bunnies here and there just to look really nice. This dough does make quite a few cookies. Once in a while, if I don't need these many cookies, this dough is great in the freezer. All right, and just to have a few different things, we'll do our cute little bunny here. Now you can make this for Christmas with holly leaves or Mother's Day with flowers. There's really no end to the occasions, really. It just depends on what you have for cookie cutters. And sometimes I turn my cutters upside down just to fit a few more in there. We got another cute little bunny. Let's try some of him. I think when he's decorated, he'll look pretty cute. Now we have our oven preheating to 400. Now these cookies only take 8 minutes. Sometimes it'll look like they're not done when you go in to check on the cookies, but they do set up a little bit when they come out of the oven. I use what I call a touch test. If they feel like they're set, then I take them out. I do like to get them out a little bit before they turn brown around the edges, because even if you're covering them with frosting, the edges usually do show, so that's not something that we want. Alright, so I'm going to finish putting these on the cookie sheets, and on my cookie sheets I just have some parchment paper. We've discussed I really like that a lot. That's the only way to kind of guarantee they're not going to stick. And they'll come right off. You'll be very, very happy with it. Alright, so I'm going to fill up probably at least 2 more cookie sheets. So I'll come back and show you when they're done. Alright, so now we're going to make the icing. We're going to make a royal icing today. Usually I do like a poured cookie icing, if anybody's heard of that. It's a little softer. I just feel like it has a bit of a better taste, but it's pretty humid today. And since this is for spring, the royal icing will dry much faster, and it really does give it a professional appearance. So we're going to use the wire whisk for this, because the royal icing is almost like a meringue. You have to whip it till you have stiff peaks. So the first thing we have to do is sift 4 cups of confectioner's sugar. Now I'm not a big fan of sifting, but in something like this you really have to do it, because if there's any lumps, it'll show in your icing. And it's not the end of the world, but if you're going to go to all this trouble to make these, a couple minutes sifting is really well worth it. Sometimes I just use a strainer and do this, but it's coming out the side of the sifter. We just want it to be as smooth as possible. We're almost there. Sometimes I wish I had my grandmother's sifter, I swear. They were better back in the day. She had the one that was like the gun that you pulled. That was pretty cool. Not sure they make those anymore, but if I ever came upon one at a flea market or something, you bet I'd have one. Alright, so it's good that we did that, because as you can see I am banging out a couple of these lumps. But it's a really, really important part of icing. Alright, let me just grab a spatula. Alright, so we're going to mix again. This was 4 cups of sifted flour. In fact, I shouldn't have put this paddle on yet, so I could get the flour. 4 cups of sifted sugar, confectioner's sugar. But I took the paddle off because I didn't want to wear this and have it all over the kitchen, which I'm still doing a bit of. All right, so we're going to put this back on. All right, we're going to get this going on slow just so it'll mix for a little bit. Now to this we're going to add 3 tablespoons of meringue powder. If you're not sure what meringue powder is, you can look it up online. You can get it at all the hobby stores. It's really good for this recipe. So 3 tablespoons of that. We're going to put 5 tablespoons of water. Now normally you would put 6 tablespoons of water, but what I'm going to do is put a tablespoon of lemon juice, because these are lemon cookies. And it'll make the frosting just to taste a little bit better. So there's our 5 tablespoons of water. And this is our 1 tablespoon of lemon juice. Now we have to whisk this for at least 7 to 10 minutes. What we're looking for is stiff peaks, just like meringue. So I'm going to let this do its job, and we'll be back to show you what it looks like. Alright, so this is what it looks like. See how stiff it is? It's really a good stiff peak. Alright, so I'm going to clean up a bit and we'll come back and we'll tint a little bit of frosting. All right, so I think we're gonna do 3 colors today. I'm actually gonna leave a little bit of white too. I might wanna do a little zigzag on some of the eggs. I'm using these paper bowls. You can use any bowls. The dye does come out of your regular dishes. I just felt like using this today. So I kind of want equal of all colors. I have a bit of a pastel color pattern today. I think this one needs a little more. Just need a tiny bit of white. I thought a couple Easter eggs with a little zigzag would look nice. Now, when you're saving a little in the bowl, you should take just a damp paper towel and cover it. This icing will dry out awful fast. All right, so my color scheme today is going to be a lavender, a pink, and a yellow. So I was going to use toothpicks, but if you use a good knife, it's so much easier to mix. And you want a good amount of color. I mean, you can start little and add a little more because, you know, you can't take it away, but I do find a lot of color goes a long way. Now you can see I want it pretty springy looking, and it does look a little dark sometimes, but when it dries it's much lighter. And you want to incorporate all the white because you don't want to have stripes. That looks pretty good. And we're going to get these into a bag as soon as they're mixed up, so hopefully we won't have any drying issues. Alright, I left a little white on there. So there's our lavender. And if you do get them on your hands, they do tend to stain a bit, but it'll wear off soon. I think we'll want a lot of yellow. Yellow being a nice spring color. Now I mostly use Wilton products. I don't know what it is. I just always have. The Article products are pretty good too, but Wilton really does have just about anything you might need. Now this is a really nice color. Nice daffodil yellow. I was thinking I'd go pretty pastel, but I have to say I like these. So there's our yellow. I think they'll be nice and springy looking. And then finally, you can't really have spring without a little pink. I like it. They go together pretty well. I think that says spring. Like I said, you can make these for anything. Any colors. You're only limited by your imagination and your cookie cutters. All right. Now there's our colors. Now I have a little bit of a trick I do to get them in a bag. And you will want to use a bag just so you can direct where the icing's going. This is a little thicker, so you could really frost the cookies. It's just not as neat in appearance if you do. So my little trick is to take a glass. Now I use the disposable bags. You can get these in packs of 100 if you cook as much as I do. I know a lot of people don't, but they come in a few bags too. I recommend the disposable because the ones that you have to clean, they really can be a pain and they get greasy. Alright, so I have a little bit of a trick to get your colors into your bag. So we talked about the disposable bags. So the first thing that would go into your bag is one end of your coupler. And that goes in the inside of the bag. And then I'm using just a round tip today. That goes over the end of the bag and the other end of your coupler. And they just screw on. They fit really, really good. Just give it a few good twists. And then we're going to drop this into a cup. And the reason I do this, because sometimes nobody's around and it's easier. Sometimes, you know, if somebody's there and you can do it, but it's easier, it stands up, then we can get our icings into the bag. And if it's not a particularly runny icing or frosting, you can keep using the same cup, it won't come through. We got a little white there, I'm just going to mix it up again. I usually have too much frosting, but I like to use every bit just in case. And then if you need any touch-ups, you can keep this in the refrigerator for quite a while. Although this is royal icing, I think you could keep this outside of the refrigerator for almost a couple weeks if it was decent weather. Alright, so there's our purple. So we would bring the lip up. We're just going to squeeze it down till it gets to the tip. So I like to squeeze a lot from the top because I don't want it coming out the other end when I'm making my cookies. And I just give it a little squeeze till I can see it in the tip. Alright. I'm going to fill up the other bags and I'll be right back. Alright, so now we're going to decorate a couple. I just want to point out so that you know that everything doesn't always come out perfect. These cookies were all baked at the same time. And I just want to show you that because on TV they always make it look like everything comes out perfect and it never does. So my thought is these will just be my bottom cookies and these are my top cookies. So now this is the bow that I cut out. This will be on the top of the wreath, it'll be pretty. So I'll just show you. I think I'm going to make this pink with some pink sanding sugar. I'll show you a couple cookies with the sugar and without the sugar so you can see the difference. But you could literally use anything that you have. Now I'm just going to outline it before I try to frost it because it just hopefully will retain its shape better. You can smell the lemon juice in the icing. It smells really good. Alright, it is pretty stiff. Royal icing is very stiff. Alright, I think I'm actually going to take the tip off to get some out there. I'm going to put a little bit here and a little bit there, and then I'm just going to use something to spread it out. I'll put the tip back on because it would take forever with that. And instead of having to keep changing the tips. Alright, so I'm just going to hold it in my hand and spread it just like I'm icing a birthday cake. And it's okay if you spread some of the lining too. This almost looks like a butterfly. And actually, if you don't like how your outlining came out, you can push it out a little bit too. This is a very heavy frosting, but it will look very nice when it's dry. Okay. Now, this is the recipe for the royal icing. You could always add a little more water or a little more lemon juice just to be workable. This is the stuff that you use for gingerbread houses too that makes it stick. So if you know it's a cookie, but we do want it to dry hard where we're going to be putting it in a wreath shape. So you can see I am having some problems, but you can always go back and smooth it over. Icing is very forgiving, you can just keep working it. Alright. And since the bow is going to be on the top of my wreath, I'm definitely going to bling it out. Just don't want so many lines. Going to try and smooth it a little bit. Although I think when I put the sanding sugar on, you're not going to be able to see any of these. Alright, so there's our bow. I have some nice pale pink sanding sugar. I'm going to kind of load it up. I want it, this is going to be kind of abstract. It's going to be either colors. And then I think on the top cookies, like one of each type of cookie, I'll put some nice sanding sugar on it. But basically, I want them to be just plain. That's just the look I'm going for. You can change it any way you want. It's just for the occasion I'm making this, this is what it goes for. All right, so I think that looks pretty spring. I'll clean that up a little bit there. We're gonna let that dry. I generally let them dry overnight before I attempt to do anything with them. So here's our egg cookie. Why don't we try a lavender egg cookie? Now I happen to have a bigger tip for this one, so I should be able to fill this right in. So, but I am going to outline it again, just so that I know where I'm going with the frosting and don't go over, and I can retain that shape. Alright, so I'm just going to do a little of that. And we'll take another offset spatula. You could keep using the same one as long as you wipe it off, but I happen to have quite a few of these. Alright, so this is something that I thought I would save a little bit of white frosting for. Like I said, I basically want these pretty abstract, so I don't mind just the color. But just to show you the difference, I'm going to do just a little bit of line work. Give it a little bit of an Easter egg appeal. And do a little zigzag. That always reminds me of an Easter egg. And just a little bit. I don't want to overdo it because there's going to be maybe about 25 or 30 cookies I have. So we want them to blend and look nice together. So these are my favorite little bunnies. I think we'll make him maybe yellow. Now last year I just iced these with chocolate and put an eyeball on them, and they look just like a chocolate Easter rabbit you would get in the store. That was a pretty cool look. There's so much you can do with cookies. I'm trying to follow the pattern of his ears so that he retains his shape. And give him that little bit of a tail. And again, I'm going to take the tip off of this so I can get the amount of frosting I'm looking for. So I think maybe that will do it. Maybe I can stretch that into there. And these tips go right back on and off. They just screw on and screw off. So, all right. Let me grab another spatula. I don't know why I took out two for all of these. This one might be a little big. Let's try them. It actually works good as long as I can get into the crevices with it without making a big old mess. Don't want him to lose his tail. It's okay if you get thumbprint in there or anything. They're very fixable. And if there's one you particularly don't like, you can just cover it up with nonpareil sugar. Now see what I did there? I took his whole foot off, but I was able to smooth it right back on. Now this might be a little trickier for his face. I think I'm going to have to get a smaller knife. Maybe my assistant will grab me one. It's always good to have an assistant when you're doing these things, because I don't want to ruin his face too much. Alright, so here we'll try a tip of a butter knife so I don't have to go searching for some more offset spatulas. And I'm going to try and bring this into his ears to keep the shape. And you know, I do show you all my mistakes just so you know it just is what happens. When you see most things on TV, they do 2 or 3 takes, or they have 4 or 5 people baking in the back. I try to show you what really happens. And almost everything's fixable. Even if you know something that happened, nobody else is going to notice. All right, and there's a bunny. I think we'll leave this one plain. And our other shape was just a bunny face. Our wreath is going to be mostly eggs, but we threw in a couple characters there, so let's see. I think he might look nice pink. Try and give him a little more definition in the ears and his face. Especially since we're just leaving them a bit abstract. Sometimes I do their faces, and I just didn't want them to look a little comical. I wanted this to be more as a, I don't know, just a pretty spring dessert. All right. Smooth him out. I think we'll put a little bling on him. Whatever cookies look the best is what we'll put up the top. And there we go. He's easier to fill in. His head's not as little. And you could put as little icing as you want. You could thin it out and just basically ice them and not really frosting. There's so much you can do. All you need is a few basics. Alright, so I think he'll look nice with a little, let's see. Why don't we try a little lavender on the pink and see how that looks. That's a pretty good spring look. I have granddaughters, and I have a feeling the more bling I put on it, the happier they'll be. Alright, so those are our basic shapes. So I'm going to let you go for the moment because I have about 30 more cookies to do. And I'll come back and show you when they're all done. So the cookies came out really good. I had to enlist the help of my husband and my son since there were so many. So we're just going to, for this particular one, because it's a Easter spring wreath, I'm going to use a little bit of grass just as a contrast color because they are pretty bright cookies, but I think they'll look nice. So my basic idea was to make a wreath out of the egg shapes and then put the fancier ones to the front. So I'm just going to go around and see what we have. Try and mix up the colors, put the best ones to the front. It is very Eastery looking. All right. We'll start overlapping them a bit. Just trying to mix up the colors. That might be too many purples. Oh, yellow. Just mixing it up a bit. Need a few pinks. Right. And then, let's see. I think we could do another pink here. We might as well use them all. We know we want the bow to go here. That'd be kind of our end. I have a couple of eggs that I wrote Happy and Easter on, just for a little something. You can make this say anything that you need it to be. And I also have a couple of eggs that I just did some basic Easter designs. We'll put those in there. Sure is a lot of cookies. You can make it for as many people as you think you're gonna have. I tend to go overboard all the time. It's just my thing. Let's see, I'm gonna get them all in there. Keep keep our Happy Easter down here. Let me put a little purple up there. And then I think we'll put our bunnies on the top. This guy came out pretty good. Let's see if we can balance it a bit, even though it's really meant to be a little messy. Just a big pile of cookies. Who doesn't like a big pile of cookies? I think I'll tuck a couple more bunnies in here. Maybe a yellow one over here just for a little contrast of color. Might be able to fit somebody under this one. Alright. I think I have more cookies than I probably needed. I'm gonna just keep playing with it, rearrange it till you get something you would like. That leaves us some room for these bunnies. Alright, I think I like that. I'm going to turn him sideways just so the bow's a little higher. Okay, and there you have it. A spring cookie wreath. Until next time, I'll see you then.